This podcast may contain adult themes.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only.
The views and opinions in this podcast are expressly our own.
When I get to the workplace, I like to fuck shit up.
Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
Hey, are you tired of toxic workplaces and the negativity that comes with them?
We hear you, and we're here to shake things up. Welcome to Let's Break Up Toxic Workplace Stories, the podcast that's all about breaking up with workplace toxicity.
I'm Nicola, and I'm here with my co-host Gina. Together, we're going to explore real-life experiences of workplace toxicity and offer a sense of encouragement and unity.
That's right. We're tackling the tough topic of negativity in the workplace and turning it into a movement for positivity.
We'll be interviewing guests to share their experiences and offer practical solutions for dealing with workplace toxicity. Our aim is to promote solidarity and a sense of community amongst our listeners.
Let's Break Up is quickly becoming the go-to source for anyone looking to share and then ditch the drama and create a happier, healthier work environment.
So join us each week as we explore the various forms of toxicity in the workplace. Get ready to join the revolution against red flags and toxic workplaces.
Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell all your friends.
In this week's episode.
Okay, can I please? Oh, so you're getting another makeup tutorial and a hair tutorial today. Today,
Okay, very good.
I wish, seriously, you need to try this stuff.
What is the brand name?
It's called Milkshake.
That's the brand name?
Yeah, and it's leave-in conditioner, but it smells so yummy. Like you want to
Okay.
lick the bottle. It's so good. And then
I hear you.
us curly haired,
Mhm.
for the
Mhm.
curly haired peoples, it makes your hair feel so soft and yummy.
By the way, we're not sponsored by any of these people.
No, I mean, if Milkshake really wants to sponsor me, I'm totally open to it because
Yeah,
I
me too.
literally eat the entire brand. Ow.
My company works for this very cool hair care company called Curlsmith. And one of the people, I work with a few different people there. They're based out of the UK.
Fun.
Yeah, and yesterday I got a huge package from one of the girls. She sent me because she knows that I have very curly hair and she knows that my daughter has super curly hair. It was so generous of her. She is so sweet. It was just it was such a nice little pick me up because I was like, what
the nicest thing.
I know. I was like, what did I order? And then I saw who it was from, the company it was from. And I was like, no, but she's
That's
she's
so
a joy
lovely.
to work with. Yeah.
Oh, I love that for you.
Yeah, it was really cool. But hey, any hair care products that either want to work with our company, my company, or wants to actually sponsor us, we
Wow,
are
what
so
a fun
here for it.
time.
We are
So
so here
you know
for
what?
it.
We are just shameless. We're like, yeah, let's start this podcast. We're not gonna, we're not really, the plan wasn't really to monetize, but now we're like, hey, we're here for it if you keep.
Well, in our defense, I think we didn't realize how much work it really was going to be. I think you and I kind of thought oh, this is going to be fun. It'll be a fun little thing that we do on the
my
side.
God, cute little side hustle.
Yeah, a cute little passion project. And it has morphed into a second full-time job.
Oh my God. Honestly, I got
Especially for
growled
you
by
because you're doing all the editing. I think if we do start monetizing, the very first thing we're going to do is
get a video editor. That would be
a video and
phenomenal.
sound editor,
Please.
because it's so much extra work for you.
And it is, but it's draining as well because you can't listen to anything else. So I can't watch my favorite shit TV because I can't do two sounds
Right.
simultaneously.
Right. No, I'm in the same place because it's I can't if I'm listening to your first or second edits, it's I do it from I have to listen to on my headphones. I can't
And
be
then you have to
distracted.
watch it as well.
Right. I can't be distracted, all those things. So even though you are doing the majority of the back end work,
That's what she said.
that is what she said, but it is also happens to be really true. It's just a lot of work and time for both of us, which
Yeah.
which I'm not complaining about, but I'm just saying, like, I don't
I think we were
realized.
surprised. I think,
Yeah, I think we didn't realize like how bad, like how much of a time commitment it truly
but
is.
you know what? Because I'm super hyper focused on it, I'm really enjoying doing it though.
I know you are. It's pretty amazing.
Morena
Hi.
Kelly, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Just let
Ooh,
me
where
sort
are
my
you coming to us from?
UK.
Woo!
Yay! Second UK.
Well, no,
Yes.
Gareth was also the UK, but he was New Zealand.
Oh, but he's technically living in New Zealand right now.
Zealand.
Okay.
And sorry, it is like 5 a.m. here, so you're getting a hair and makeup tutorial while we're doing a podcast. It's so great.
Don't worry. Don't
Right
worry. Don't
now,
worry.
you look like you have the worst bowl cut I've ever seen.
It's what I like. It's so sexy.
It's the worst bowl cut. Don't do that to yourself. Oh my God. Okay. So
Well, it's lovely to have you with us today, Kelly.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here.
I'm hoping though that you have listened to a couple of the episodes so that you're joining an entire hot mess.
I have some snippets, right? We can all do hot mess brilliantly, right?
oh yeah.
Well, oh yeah, look
It's
at my
all
bowl
good.
cut.
It's
Your
all
bowl
good.
cut.
It's so good.
Okay, so what are you certified in so that we know what level of smart we're dealing with?
Psychology, neuroscience, organizational change and behavior, yoga, meditation,
Ooh.
empowerment, firewalk training, breath work.
I have questions.
Wait, we have questions.
Let's stop with the firewalk training.
I'm
How
curious
does that
about
even-
this too.
Yeah, why? Why, how?
Why firewalking?
So I wanted to be able to, I think as part of my coaching, I wanted to be able to understand the physiology that can get clients making action, like taking better action in a quicker way, and understanding what the physiology is behind that. So firewalking, like glass walking, arrow breaking, board breaks, all of that empowerment stuff are amazing ways to get our physiology in the right space to get us to make the right decisions.
Here's some information.
Okay, so here's my question. When you are walking on the fire, do you just not feel it?
You feel it, but you just go across it. Like you know you're walking on fire. Absolutely
Okay,
know
so-
that you're walking on
So
fire.
it's not like a mindset where you're like, I'm not going to feel this heat. You feel it and do it anyway. And just
No,
hustle through.
you feel it, but yeah, you allow yourself to go through it anyway. And I think, a big shift for all of us is that if we want to make change, we've got to go through some discomfort, right? Change can be uncomfortable. Otherwise, if it wasn't uncomfortable, we'd all be doing it, right? We'd all.
It's true.
And we don't.
I
We
have
don't.
follow-up questions.
Pain is the
Yeah.
touchstone of all growth, right? Who said that?
Absolutely. So we've got to be able to get through that
Mhm.
threshold to move forwards.
Does it leave blisters on the feet? Because I think that's my
It
big-
can do. Yeah, it absolutely can do. And I've definitely had some, but I think in the world of firewalking, they're not called blisters, they're called fire kisses.
Oh,
Goodbye.
Get off the grass. Okay, I'm such a princess. I say I'm not a princess at all, really.
It's a fire
But I'm a-
kiss. It is a fire kiss.
I'm
What
an
a
absolute
wonderful
baby when it comes to pain.
euphemism for saying you have third-degree burns on the soles of your feet.
Yeah.
Such a wonderful euphemism.
No, I hate pain so much. Like I loathe pain. But I'm happy to be uncomfortable in a work environment. Happy to do that.
Yeah.
But
Oh, Nicholas
Yeah.
loves
Pain?
a terrible, uncomfortable work environment without knowing it's terrible and uncomfortable.
I love
or,
me.
or a cult.
I'm so comfortable.
Loves it. Sign
With
her
all
the
of
fuck
the above.
up.
I've worked in a cult.
Okay, ooh,
But
tell
wait,
us the story right now,
I've
Kelly.
worked in a cult.
Tell
The
us
story
the
of the
story.
cult. So I was head of HR in this organization, and like the chief exec would quite literally, we'd have these monthly staff forums, and the chief exec would like get everybody chanting, right, that Sunday was the best day of the week because it was the day before we came to work, right? And he'd get everybody to stand and we'd all have to chant and clap and do all this stuff. And you go to your first one and you think, what the absolute fuck have I walked into, right? You're like, this is not But then you kind of get bought into it and you think this is amazing because everybody's really bought into it and you can create amazing HR stuff, right? And you think this is wonderful. But then people start to get disciplined when they don't stand up and chant at the staff forums, right? I'm literally having to discipline people for not being engaged and not being wonderful and not doing all this stuff. And we used to have, because the chief exec was a bit weird, we would have loads of like reporters and
I
stuff.
would have never have guessed that, Kelly. I would
But
have
we would
never
have
guessed
all of
that.
no, seriously, but we'd have all of these reporters and journalists that would come to the forum, and the chief exec would be like, Kelly, accompany them to lunch afterwards. So I'd like be stuck with all the journalists at lunch. And every single reporter or journalist would be like, so it feels like a little bit of a cult, right? And it was my job to woo the journalists and tell them that it wasn't. This was just a really valued and engaged workplace where everybody feels like an amazing part of something wonderful. And then when I left, I met a guy who was there before me, and I met a guy and he's like, so where did you come from? And I told him, and he's like, so that's the cult, right? And I was like, yeah.
So did you know that it was a cult while you were there, or did it take you leaving to be like, holy
it's
shit?
The brainwashing, right? You're brainwashed into thinking this is what an amazing place to work looks like, and you think, oh, I love it.
Yep.
Right, you feel part of
you
something.
really?
And this is amazing.
Did you really love it?
In the middle bit of it, yeah. The beginning bit, I just thought, what the hell?
Yeah.
The end bit was like, I need to get out. I need to get the hell out of here.
Uh-huh.
But the middle bit, I worked with some incredible people. So yeah, it was lovely.
Okay, well, I like that we have a pre-story. I appreciate that. So,
yeah.
I will have hundreds of them, literally.
Oh, we're so on board. But before we get started, would you like to introduce yourself, Kelly? Because we are excited to tell people more about you.
I am Kelly Swingler. I am a burnout recovery strategist, ex-HRD. So I worked in HR for over 20 years. I burned out really, really badly in 2013, left the corporate world and decided that I knew everything that there was about burnout prevention, really kind of embedded myself in all of this weird and wonderful training, and then burned out again in 2015 and realized that I hadn't learned anything. So then it was really time to make the changes. And so since 2015, I have been making all the changes, designing all the strategies, and really helping leaders at all levels to live a life post burnout, understand what all of that looks like post burnout. But my big mission, I will get there one day, is to banish burnout. And I believe that we can do that by eliminating toxic workplaces.
Do you want to start by walking us through your first burnout and like what industry were you in? What was your position? How long were you at the position? So on and so forth.
Yeah. So I was an HR director, organization of just under 4,000 people.
Oh, just
under. I had a team of, just under. I had a team of 43 people. I was 32. Kind of thought I knew it all. I'd been headhunted for this particular role from a previous organization. They loved all of the stuff that I was doing in HR. They loved the amazing workplaces that I was creating. They loved all of the innovative and creative things that I was doing to change the world of work for people. So of course I go into this organization. On my first day, my gut was telling me, you need to get the hell out of here.
On the first
day. On the first day, my
was
gut
there
feel,
anything specific that
it was, I mean, definitely
that?
a few things. Yeah, definitely a few things. So I turned up on my first day like nobody was expecting me. I was left sat in reception for like an hour.
Ew.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I went up and kind of, it was like, you have, your boss hasn't got time to meet you today. Just like basically sit here. We can't give you any IT access. And it was one of these places where you had like a key fob to get around the building.
Oh no!
Like I couldn't go anywhere like unescorted. Yeah, couldn't go anywhere unescorted because I didn't have my key pass. Couldn't get on the internet. But there was something else. I just kind of sat there. My gut was like, get the hell out. I put it down firstly to kind of first day nerves. Like who walks out of a job in their first day, right? Nobody walks out of a job on their first day, not at the level that I was at, right? This is stupid. So So I stayed, and the niggling feeling that kept telling me to get the hell out there lasted for months, and still I carried on. And I think I was convinced that although I could start to see some of the like toxic behaviors and like the lack of communication, the lack of engagement, the backstabbing, the bitching, the awful exec team, the awful, like I could see all this stuff. But as the HR director, I think I literally thought I could change all of this, right? What an amazing opportunity.
It was essentially your job to change all of it if you did highlight it.
Right? This was my job to change this whole workplace, like single-handedly, obviously. And I just stayed.
You don't need 43 people.
Don't need 43 people. But I think I just got to the point of like this. I saw it as an opportunity to really, really kind of make my mark and put my stamp on this workplace and really, really change things. So I carried on. And 2 years later, I was seriously ill. My burnout had taken hold of me physically, like to the point that I could not stand up straight. The pain that I was in was ridiculous. I couldn't stand up straight, couldn't carry like my oversized handbag in my oversized high heels. Literally couldn't walk. And I had 7 months of being admitted in and out of hospital. I was passing out on the train on the way home. I was being admitted to hospital. Nobody could tell me what was wrong with me. But I still didn't think there was anything wrong, right? And everybody kept telling me, all of my family and all of my friends were like, you need to take a break. It was like, I don't, there's nothing wrong with me. That's where burnout had got me.
Were you working like crazy hours? What was actually happening? Because we just spoke to somebody else about burnout, and they were saying that, the hours were becoming crazy. They were focusing on things that they couldn't control versus the things that they could. So what did your burnout look like before it became physical?
So before it became physical, I would say, I don't think there was anything wrong, right? I've been used to managing huge projects before. I was always a hardworking, overachieving, overperforming perfectionist, right? They were badges that I wore with honor, right? This is me. This is what it looks like.
Yep.
And I think at the level that I was working at and at the salary that I was being paid, I think I just had this, I don't know, like just this mentality that at my level on the salary that I was being paid, I needed to give as much as I could possibly give. And I think also because I was the youngest director at that level, I was also the only woman at that level. And I think I felt like I had so much to prove. So whilst I'm sat around boardrooms and the bitching and the backstabbing is continuing, I was managing multi-million-pound projects. I was involved in lots and lots of different change programs. I was embedding a new team. There was so much exciting stuff that was happening. And I just thought I was spinning lots and lots of plates, but I had, an incredible assistant. I had an amazing team, but kind of outside of my immediate assistant and my immediate team, it was toxic. Like literally people would not invite you to a meeting and then send you this awful email about how dare you not turn up for this meeting. It's like I didn't even know it was happening. Like you'd submit board papers that everybody, like you'd have conversations with every single person about this board paper before you'd go into the meeting, and everyone was like, yeah, fully on board, love it. And you'd get in the boardroom and people would be like looking at each other like, what is she talking about? Like we have absolutely no idea what she's saying. And I'm like, excuse me. So there was all of those things happening, but I think the most poisonous stuff that was going on was as part of an organizational wide change program. The organization had recruited or were partnering with one of like the world's leading top 4 consultancies. I think the way that they get into organizations in the first place is they baffle people with science, right? So here is a PowerPoint presentation with 10,000 bits of data on. Yeah, but the information is so small that nobody can read it and nobody dare ask any questions because nobody wants to look like the stupid one in the room.
Because
and I'm
they're the smartest in the room.
Explain that to me. Yeah, right.
They blinded you with science.
So some of the so part of how the company had engaged them was they would get like a percentage of every financial saving that the business would make. This consultancy would get a percentage of that saving, right? There was one project that my team had been leading My team had been leading this even before this consultancy was engaged. My team had been leading on this project, and we had identified and were in the process of implementing, within the first year of this project concluding, £14 million saving, right?
Oh my God, and they
saving.
took the commission.
And they took the commission for the project. I'm like, but they had nothing to do with it. So I'm sat arguing with the finance director and the senior consultant that was working, and they're like, Kelly, just let them have it. I'm like, this is unethical. It's immoral. They did nothing. The project was already finished before they came in, and you're going to give them a report. Well, this is our contract terms. Well, you need to relook at the contract terms, because if my team are going to continue to work to keep saving this money, they're going to take all of it. So there was that stuff. But what was also happening, they kept organizing these like leadership wide events. So you've probably got between 60 and 100 leaders in a room at any one time. And we were stuck in these rooms for days, right? You'd have 6 consultants, like one leading it, 2 typing on laptops at either side of the room,
God,
2 people writing on flip charts, one person doing something else. But at the end of these meetings, that we would literally feel like we were trapped in these rooms for days.
Yes.
And I'm looking at it from a time and cost perspective to the organization, right? How much is this costing us in time? How much is this costing us in money? And at the end of these meetings, the guy that was stood there in like his grey pinstripe suit would kind of open up his suit jacket, pull out this piece of paper and be like, here's one I prepared earlier. And then ignore everything that we'd said for the last 2 days. And I'm like, what are you doing? So again, like from an immoral and unethical perspective, I'm like, this does not feel right. And this stuff just continued to happen. And I continued to call it out. And everybody else was like, but it's in the contract. We've just got to kind of, just leave
that
it.
Contract. Read your bloody contracts as your lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. Absolutely, I'm not. But absolutely, I'm not.
As your fake lawyer friend.
As your fake lawyer friend, the one that does, the one that is studying a Master of Law, read your contracts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Read them. Have a lawyer read them.
Read your contracts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that was the thing. And I think seeing this unethical, immoral stuff got me even more into like, I have to be the one to make the change, right? I've got to stop this stuff. I've got to stop this unethical. I've got to stop this immoral. And then they'd said to me, what kind of really got to the point was they'd said to me, you need to restructure your team. You need to make them, put them at risk of redundancy before Christmas. And then when you come back in January, you need to like consult with them at the same time as interviewing them for their posts. I was like, immoral, unethical. And was basically told by the whole of the leadership team. Yeah. And was basically told by the whole of the leadership team, Kelly, just get on with it.
You're taking on all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You're calling out the, unethical proceedings of this company.
Yeah.
And then your physical symptoms start, correct?
Yeah. So then my physical symptoms start. So I was basically told, make your team redundant before Christmas, which I did reluctantly. Worried about it all over the Christmas breaks. I thought this is just wrong and I need to be there for my team. And so I had gone back in the first day after in the new year to start interviewing my team for their jobs in a restructure that I didn't agree with, didn't think it was being done correctly, didn't agree with the way it was being done, didn't agree with the timing, didn't agree with anything. But I thought, if it has to be done, it will be me that leads it, because I'm going to make sure that every single one of my team is treated fairly and awesomely and treated like people and supported and all of that stuff. And it was by the lunchtime of the first day of interviews that this crippling pain came. And I was interviewing with 2 other directors from across the business. They said, Kelly, you're going to have to go home. I was like, absolutely no way, right? This is my team. We need consistent interview panels. I need to be supporting my team. I need to be supporting my people. I'm staying. That was on the Wednesday. On the Thursday, I was commuting into London. So I live like 100 miles out of London. I was commuting in on the train. It takes me about an hour and a half to get in.
Also
I went
toxic,
back into London again.
Opinion.
Yeah, also toxic, absolutely.
The commute is also toxic.
So it is, especially when it's like 3 hours a day.
Yeah, like no.
Absolutely. So I went back in on the Thursday. The pain had gotten even worse. And I was interviewing with the same 2 directors. They're like, Kelly, you have to go home. I was like, nope. Because I'm going to be here to support my team and make sure it's a fair process and blah, 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 blah. And the Friday came, couldn't carry my own handbag by the Friday because the pain was so ridiculous. Couldn't stand up straight, couldn't walk properly, but hobbled in did the hour and a half commute, got myself into London, got myself into the office, did myself the interviews. And it was that night, the pain had got so excruciating on the train on the way home that I had gone into the toilet. And in the UK, I don't know if it's the same where you are, but in the UK, we have like these on the trains, you don't get them in every carriage, but there are these toilets to kind of allow for wheelchair access. And they have like the sliding doors that are kind of like on a curve. Yeah. You don't know by pressing the buttons whether it's opening or locked or like, I mean, it's just like flashes at you constantly. But I say my biggest achievement on the way home that day was actually getting myself the door open, getting into the toilet and locking the door, right? Because normally you can sit peeing in those rooms and you think it's locked and then somebody else opens the door.
Oh, and then the door just slides open and you're like,
and you're like,
hey, here's my pajamas.
So that didn't happen on this day, right? So I still kind of
so what did happen?
What did happen was I had sat down just literally to try and kind of, splash my face with water, do whatever. Hadn't realized that I had passed out until I found myself on the floor, having hit my head on the sink from the pain that I was experiencing. But I managed to get myself together, hobbled back to my seat. Thankfully, I'd managed to get myself off the train at my own station. A friend of mine had been a few carriages back on the same train. She saw me hobbling across the platform at the station. Her husband took me to accident and emergency, and that became the first of my hospital admissions. I was still back in at work on the Monday.
I was going to say, and you're still...
Yeah.
Can I
and even after that, go.
Let me ask a couple questions. I identify with that feeling of like, okay, this is on me. Like, I'm the one who has to change this. I'm the only one who could do it. Do you think, which is in reality, at least for me, but I have a feeling you'll agree, that's not what it is. It's like, you have a team, you have people who can help you if you ask, but I sometimes have trouble asking for help. And do you think possibly it was a combination of knowing what you were doing was unethical, and also that ego of thinking I'm the only one who could do this in the right way, and like the dichotomy of that?
Yes and no. So with all of the research and all of the work that I've done on burnout since then, the way that I kind of describe it now is I think when we are in toxic workplaces, what can happen to us is we start to change who we are, right? Fundamentally who we are to try and fit into these organizations, right? Absolutely. So this is me. These are my values. This is who I am at my core. I'm strong. I'm able. I'm capable. This is me. But we're in this toxic environment with all of this crap that's going on around us, right? People not inviting me to meetings. But if they're not going to invite me to the meeting, I'm not going to invite them to the meeting. If they're not going to give me the information, I'm not going to give them the information. And it's almost like we then go for kind of tit for tat in these organizations. So what we start to do is step away from who we really are, right? My core values are not exclude people and act like an absolute whatever. My core values are let's be open, honest, transparent, all of this stuff. So I think when we're in those environments, that's what starts to happen. And the way that I kind of describe that is the further that we step away from who we are, the bigger the gap we leave for burnout to fill. So I didn't at the time
like that.
Yeah, I really
so I didn't necessarily at the time know that my ego was taking over, and my ego was like, it's got to be you, 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 because I wasn't me. I wasn't aligned with who I am, and I just thought I just got to keep going, right? If there is all of this toxicity, if there is all of this ego bashing, and there is all of this horrible stuff going on, like I have to be the person that saves this, because my team are at risk, these people are at risk, these like almost like I have to save everybody from this hell, right? So I'm being pulled between, I've got to do what's right, because I still have to keep doing the right thing, even though I'm not doing the right thing, because I'm starting to change my behaviors, but the core driver of me is like, but you've got to keep going, right? You can change this, Kelly, you can change it, you can change it, you can change it. And so in that's when the ego steps over. But 7 months later, and every time I was admitted to hospital, I was still working on my hospital bed, right? I don't know if any of you two are like fans of Friends, like TV series Friends.
Yeah.
I mean,
one
I've
episode,
seen it. I'm not a fan, but the one where Phoebe just gives birth.
Where Phoebe, no. So they do like, I think it's Janice, like Chandler's girlfriend Janice. She's like, I don't know, like what would be different for all of you, right? And they all go down this route of like this kind of it's like the sliding doors moment, right? The alternative lifestyles that they could have.
when Phoebe's in the hospital,
Phoebe's like a high-powered executive.
Make the deal
on her phone. Yep. Smoking in the toilet, typing away on her laptop, on her phone.
But like,
that was
wow,
me.
Completely like just having had like hernia,
having had a heart attack. A
heart attack.
Yeah.
Okay,
that was me. Yeah, that was me. Every time I was rushed into hospital, that was me. And I look back at it now, and I'm like, how could you?
I was the same way. Like after I gave birth to my daughter, I was so bored because she had to go to NICU just because it was in the right in the middle of COVID, and that's what the hospital's procedure was at the time. I was so bored. I was working, but I own my own company, so I think it's a little bit different. But I get that. I get being like, oh, I literally just ripped my entire bottom open, and here I am working.
Yeah, here I am on my laptop because I can work. Yeah.
No, I get that. And I also really deeply identify with slowly becoming someone that you can't recognize, but also your ego also taking over, knowing you can still do this, knowing, all of that. That was exactly what mine looked like. Mine was not nearly as pronounced as yours was, but I talk about it a lot. I got really bad skin infection. On my face, it looked like I was like I had leprosy, more or less. And then I was on antibiotics for 2 full months to just clear it. So not nearly as extreme as yours, but I also got out a lot quicker. I was smarter. I was smart enough.
I was stuck in the cult for 4 years, and
I was there for 4 months, and I was like, I'm out. I was like, fuck this, I'm out. So back to your story. So what was the final thing that happened that you first of all, were you fired or did you leave?
No, so I left, but not until another year later after those first symptoms. So the first symptoms started in January 2013. As I said, I was in and out of hospital, still working, still doing all that stuff. In the July, because of the high stress, and again, I think I have to make this point. Burnout is chronic stress, right? It's chronic workplace stress. So high levels of stress for very high periods of time. We all know chronic stress can literally kill us, right?
Yes,
so I had the physical symptoms. So I ended up having 2 different operations at 2 different hospitals in 48 hours in the July. And whilst I was recovering from that, I'd had a holiday, I had a family holiday, did kind of all that stuff. But before I'd got on that holiday, I was proving my worth through whether I could still work. Sure. Right. And after these operations, I had a few days where I could not work. My body, particularly after 2 anesthetics, could not work, could not move.
You're just sleep. You could just sleep.
Absolutely. My body's just not today. And I was laying on the sofa, having watched mind-numbing TV all day. And my sons came home from school. So it's not my bag, really not my bag. But I have twin sons. They were 12 at the time. They came home from school, and I think I must have looked terrible, terrible. And my response to them was, don't worry, I'm going to be absolutely fine soon, and I'm going to be back at work, right? Because being back at work was the sign that I was okay. And my sons took one look at each other. They're 12 years old at the time. Took one look at each other, sat on the coffee table in front of me, and one of them said, but Mum, we don't want you to go back to work because your job is killing you.
Whoa.
Holy shit.
And that was
kids say shit
when your 12-year-olds look you in the eye. When your 12-year-olds
know better
look you in
than
the eye,
you. and know better
Yeah.
than you.
Yeah.
It's like a watershed
And
moment. So was that your moment?
absolutely.
Yeah.
That was my holy fuck moment, right?
Yeah.
Something has to change. What am I doing? And it was then almost like all of the last 7 months, like my sons had been coming to visit me every time I was in hospital, and they'd see me on my phone, and they'd see me with my laptop, and they'd see me not taking a day off. They'd see me not be able to stand up. They'd see me not being able to get out of bed at a weekend. They'd see me have to say no to some of their stuff. And I'm still like, well, everything's fine, right? Literally everything's fine. And so that was kind of my pinnacle, like something has to change moment. We then we went on a lovely family holiday. We had a couple of weeks off, and I just then decided that I was going back into this workplace, back into the office. I was going to kick ass. I was going to be me. And if they didn't like it, things weren't going to work out between me and the organization. And I really kind of pulled myself together, cut all my hair off, like bleached it blonde, like went back with the edgiest look ever. I'm like, right, Kelly's back, right? And I've, kind of got my sass on, and I walked in, and I lasted. So I've gone back in the September. By the January, I had left, started my own company, and have never gone back into a corporate environment again. And it was the best decision that I ever made. The timing, I think, could have been better. So at the time, I mean, my life looks nothing the same as it did then. But I got my first clients like a couple of weeks into starting my company. But at the time, I remember going home and saying to my husband, like, I need to start my own company. This is absolutely what I need to do. And I was the main breadwinner, right? I was the biggest salary earner. We'd literally just spent every single of our last pennies on kind of buying and renovating a house. Like, we had no money in the bank at all.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, we can't do, like, you need to keep working for 2 years, and then if you still want to run your own business, then you can do it. And it was like, not staying here. And I left. So I literally started my business like with no financial cushion, no money in the bank, no client pipeline. Most of my network was in London. As I said, I live like 100 miles away from there. What was my business going to look like? How was I going to do it? And I started building it from scratch with literally nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Got my first client within a couple of weeks, started to get some money in the bank. Kept pushing, kept struggling. My husband and I separated kind of within a year of me starting my own business. So within 12 months of those first physical symptoms taking over, I had started a business, left my husband, moved house, started to grow a team. Like, there was nothing that I hadn't done. And then kind of 6 months later, I had burned out again.
Can we just pause here for a second and remind people that if this podcast is something you enjoy, we would love to hear from you.
You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Let's Break Up Toxic Workplace Stories.
Sharing and subscribing really helps us feel validated.
It was like,
And what did this? So wait, I have two questions. When you finally left the toxic place that gave you those terrible symptoms, did they cease almost immediately, or was it like a tapering off of
I mean, it took forever. And for some of the conditions, so my first, I can't say whether the physical symptoms, so particularly kind of digestive issues, like lots of physical, and I'm carrying an awful lot of weight. Like, it's pretty much like my body just shut down after that first one. It was just like, I'm not playing ball anymore. So I live with kind of two fairly seriously physical kind of health conditions, which I manage okay. But I wasn't managing them properly, because I think at the time I just thought it would go away. Now I'm out of there.
Right.
I need to fix all this stuff.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything will get better. There's nothing that I need to do. And when you're running your own business, but particularly when you're starting your own business, right?
Oh my God.
You're going 24/7, right? It's 24/7.
We literally had this
everything.
conversation this morning.
Yeah.
Literally.
It is 24/7. Because you need to find the clients, you need to keep the money in the bank, you've got to do the marketing, the admin, the accounts, right? You've got to be doing all of that stuff. And I was loving doing what I was doing, right? I was doing it for myself. This was my turnaround. So really, really doing all of that. But I got a phone call 3 months into starting my business to say that my replacement, so the replacement HR director that had been taken in to replace me, is no word of a lie. She had died
What?
whilst away on a leadership residential, right? So on a
How
leadership
old was
residential, she was early 50s.
Okay, so not as young as you
And
were at the
she had
time.
died. No, so she's 20 years older than me.
Okay.
But she died in her sleep whilst away on a leadership residential. And I then rang another contact of mine who had left the organization not long after I started, but he and I had stayed in contact. Because I'd never asked, nobody had ever really told me, stupidly, why my job role was recruited, right? I'd just been told the HRD's left to go and do something else.
Yeah, why was there
at that point? Yeah.
Much turnover?
At that point, I started digging. There were three. I was the third HR director to become seriously ill in that organization. And my replacement then dies whilst away on a leadership residential. So then I'm like, alarm bells, right? Because I came out of that. And part of me was still, I must have burnt out because I wasn't good enough at the job. I was a failure. It was the wrong company. So you're internalizing all of that stuff as well, which I now know to be absolute rubbish. Yeah. I'm absolutely amazing. And I was amazing. And it was just, it was the organization and lots of, a few other things, but it wasn't that I failed. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough at my job.
Agree. Yep.
And so kind of 3 months into starting my own business, that's when I really wanted to get under the skin of burnout and stress. And I started doing courses and training. So in addition to the qualifications that I already had, that was really when I started to study neuroscience and hypnotherapy and psychotherapy and understand stress and the impact of stress on the body. And I started studying yoga and Ayurveda and all of these things because I wanted to ensure that nobody else was ever going to go through burnout again.
Right.
And then, within kind of 18 months, I've burned out again.
So,
but
okay.
I genuinely thought I was doing the right thing. Yeah.
My question is, did this burnout resemble the corporate? Because now you're working for yourself. So it is corporate, but it's slightly different. Like, even though I have a company and I have people working for me, I don't consider it a corporate setting. We're like more creative anyway in what we do, but we're working with huge companies. So did this burnout look different than the corporate burnout?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It was much more emotional. And I think it sucked the life out of me immediately. So I think the first time round, whilst I was dealing with these physical symptoms, if you'd have said to me, like, you've got to stop, I would have told you I could just keep on going. And I did keep on going, right? I was working from a hospital bed. Like, I kept on going. The second time, it was like somebody had turned the lights off, right? Like, you can't move. I was struggling to get out of bed. I was struggling to pull a sentence together. I was struggling to have a conversation. My entire body just felt like a dead weight. Like, literally, like someone had turned the lights off, and it was just like, I just gone. Like, I had no strength. I had no energy. Picking up a glass of water was too heavy.
So,
and this was somebody that had been like fit. I say fit and healthy until burnout number one, right? But I was still doing my exercise, my yoga, my weights, my cycling. I was still doing all of that stuff. But my literally picking up a glass of water became too heavy, and I just shut down.
So do you think any of that might have been either clinical depression and or like a second wave from the original burnout?
I think a bit of both, if I'm honest. And number two, so I was then diagnosed with bipolar in 2018. Whilst nobody can say to me where that came from, the belief is that 2 burnouts in really, really quick succession definitely contributed to it. So I do think it was a bit of both. I didn't, and I've written about this and talked about this quite a lot. I think I assumed that I had recovered from burnout number one by learning all the things that I needed to know about burnout and ensuring that I was helping everybody else not do it. And like, I was probably doing like 20 things a day, right? To make sure that I didn't burn out again, right? Got to keep my stress levels low. So I've got 20 things. As long as I tick these 20 things off, This is how I'm going to reduce
But
stress.
that
This
can
is how I'm
give-
going to do all this.
That can give you burnout from trying not to be burned out.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what it did. But I genuinely thought this is where it is. But I had told myself I had recovered from my first burnout. The second burnout, and I talk about this difference quite a lot. The second one, it wasn't just a case of I needed to recover from, I had to heal from it.
Mhm.
And the healing needed to be an inside job. Like there was a lot of interest, like there was no longer looking outwards and like give me the textbook answer on how to avoid burnout and reduce my stress. The second burnout meant a lot of introspection, a lot of inward looking, a lot of self-discovery and self-exploration, and a lot of unlearning and relearning and a lot of change in order to allow me to heal from it. And I know that I will never, ever go back to that point again. Like never.
I'm curious to know, like, how do you identify the symptoms if you're coming up for burnout number 4? Like, how do you now know what to look out for and the flags you're looking for before you get to that point?
So I'm 2 burnouts. I hope they'll never, ever get to the third. But I think the symptoms can be very similar and very similar for everybody. I think if I get to the point, so some of them are behavioral, some of them are physical, some of them really are kind of mental. So I think we can start to get headaches, right? So headaches, digestive issues. So we start to develop intolerances for food. We're overeating or we're undereating. More foods start to disagree with us. More headaches. Our sleep starts to go out of the window. Our anxiety can increase. We can start to feel depressed. So depression can definitely creep in. So I think they are some of those things. I then think there is this need to perfect everything, right? You've got to be perfect. If that kind of, you have to do this perfectly creeps in, for me, that's a trigger that something needs to change. But I think there were 2 of the biggest things. The first is withdrawing from the things that you know are the best things for you. Right. If I want to withdraw from, say, my yoga, that for me is a sign that something is wrong. If I want to withdraw from spending time with my family or friends, that for me is a sign that something is wrong. So withdrawing from the things that we know lift us up and give us energy. But I think also the need to be overworking, overperforming, and over delivering. And I don't mean just like, I want to do a really great job on this, so I'm going to do a couple of extra hours today, or I've got a deadline to hit, so I'm going to do a couple of extra hours a day. But I mean the overwhelming feeling that I have to push, I have to deliver, I have to make this perfect, I have to keep going. Like that for me is a telltale sign, because that's being driven by fear. The fear is causing that stress response, and that stress response is basically telling me it is not safe for you to stop.
So for me, like my daughter's going to be 3. So it's kind of been this ongoing thing of when I'm working, I'm like, I'm a shitty mom because I'm not with my daughter. Like, you know, I feel like I'm not spending enough time with her. I'm not present.
Yeah.
And then when I'm with her, I'm like, I didn't do enough today. I wasn't productive enough. It's like I can never win. But I do think that hustle culture that was so prevalent, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, really did everyone a disservice, because the new generation is much more involved in a work-life balance. And it's even like doubly harder for someone like myself, and if I would venture to guess, also you who are overachievers and who have started their business from scratch with nothing in the bank, not sure how you were going to pay your rent or feed yourself. And I think partially that helped me to be successful so early on, because I had no other choice. But I think for people like us, the burnout might happen quicker, right? Because it's like we're constantly working. For me, the more I work, the more money I can potentially make. So do you have any suggestions for people, you know, who might be self-employed or who own their own business or entrepreneurial in nature, how to avoid burnout?
You've got to put the boundaries in place. I can absolutely relate to what you're saying about that kind of mum guilt. I do. I'm going to say, I don't believe at all in work-life balance. I think it is a complete myth. And like you were saying, from that kind of hustle culture, absolutely right. And I can remember, I mean, I think I probably came out of the womb as an overachiever. I was, like literally, right? I was overachieving at school. I was moved up a year at school, like, kind of all of this stuff. And so I think part of that was just in my nature, but also throughout school. I mean, I can remember being, maybe 3 or 4 and being asked for, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? I can remember looking at some of the most expensive houses as a teenager in, the Sunday paper that my mum and dad used to get, and like millions of pounds. But like people like us don't get houses like that. And it was like, well, I'll show you, and it was kind of, I'm going to make this happen. I'm absolutely going to make this happen. And I think.
Wait, did you make it happen? Did you get one of those huge homes?
Yeah, I had the house, I had the sports car, I had the huge car, I had the all-inclusive holidays, I had the red soled shoes, the really expensive van, but like I had it all, absolutely had it all.
And then you almost died. So
and then I almost died. Yeah.
Looking back, casting my mind back to the day, I think the best my mother gave me. Now, keeping in mind my mother was a narcissist, so my value was built on perfectionism and performance. And now as an adult, my value is delivered on perfection and performance. So I am primed for a burnout. I am just ripe for the picking. But one of the gifts she gave me was when I was heading into university, people were constantly going, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? And she said to me, I don't care what you take in your first year of university. You have to go to university. That's the only prerequisite. Doesn't matter what you take. You can take any subjects you want. You can fail any subjects you want. Consider this a work out your shit year. And I did. And it was the best gift she ever gave me. Granted, I wasn't allowed to do creative subjects because those weren't real jobs. I find that looking at that, I think we need to start changing the narrative for our kids as well, where it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? There's so many job roles these days. And I think the impact of them seeing that we are responsible with our time management, that we are responsible with our work-life balance, that we are responsible with sharing information and being better leaders. I think that's the lessons we need to give, rather than what do you want to be when you grow up.
Absolutely. And I think encouraging, like, do what makes you happy, right? Do what makes you heart. And I know we talk about it, and then it's like, it's snowflakes and all that kind of stuff. But I literally do the stuff that makes you happy. And I do think that, the fact that I reached such critical burnout when my sons were 12 really helped me to look at how I was teaching my sons, how I was educating my sons, because I'd gone back to work when they were 4 months old, having them when they were born. And I went back with the mentality, I'd gone back full time when they were 4 months old, with the mentality of, I'm going to show my sons that you have to work hard for whatever you want, right? If you want the big house, you've got to work hard for it. If you want the all-inclusive holidays, you've got to work hard for it. And to burn out when my sons were 12, actually what I'd shown them was working hard can quite literally kill you, but go do it anyway, right? Because this is how you get success.
Work. And you've prioritized work
over them, right? I have said, I am prepared to work from my hospital bed rather than look after myself, because my work is more important than being there for my family. That's basically what I was showing them.
Narrative.
So I think from the guilt perspective and the burnout perspective, I think, and you touched on it, Gina, with what you were saying, like your struggle to be present. Like for me, scrap balance, right? You're never going to find balance. And particularly if you are running your own business, when it is literally, if I do not get a client and I cannot put food on the table this month, that is a huge, that's a huge responsibility, right? You haven't got
a big stressor.
The safe salary, you haven't got all of that stuff. But if you can be present in whatever it is that you are doing, so if you are present when you are at work, and then you are present when you are with your daughter, being present, I believe, is how you create the balance. Right. And I think as business owners, it's that we need to do, right? When I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm with my daughter, when I'm with my sons, when I'm with my partner, whoever it is we may be, then I'm fully in it. right? You have my undivided attention for however long, and set that as a boundary, because it can be so easy as a business owner to, you're sat having dinner with a family, you've got your phone, checking your emails, and everybody like, hello, I'm here and I matter. Like, can't we even have dinner without you checking your emails or taking a call or doing whatever? And then the people around you start to feel resentful. And whilst you're telling them that I'm doing all of this to create a brilliant life for you and for us, they don't care. They're like, I don't want the money. I don't want the house. I don't want whatever. I just want you, right? I want you as my mum or my wife or my daughter or whoever. Like, you're who I want. But that's the thing, like, they're looking at you, and again, I can remember having the conversations with my sons, like, if I slow down, you can't get the Christmas presents, you can't have the holiday, we can't stay in this house, we can't have this, they're like, Mum, we don't care. And my sons literally did not care. What my sons wanted was me to set, like everybody's house, right? I know this stuff, this has been 10 years of my life.
But like, that's so profound. It's like, we think it's so fucking weird, because just yesterday truth moment here. I do have a live-in nanny because I'm a single mom by choice. Anyway, so the live-in nanny, she's great. But yesterday at 4:30, I was like the most exhausted I had ever been. And I was like, I told the nanny, I'm gonna go take a nap, but I'll be up later. And then as I'm like laying in bed, I'm saying, I don't think I'm gonna be getting up. So I text her, I said, I know you're not doing anything tonight. I don't think I'm getting up. Can you like finish the night with my daughter? And I said to her, I was like, please tell Lucia that Mom loves her and that everything I do for her. But now I'm like, maybe I need to not say that to her. Maybe I need to just continue to be present when I can. And of course, this morning I woke up and I had my period, and I was like, oh, that's why. Right before COVID, my company was making so much fucking money. Like, it was ridiculous. And then, things changed with COVID for the business I'm in, because it's supply chain, product development. We're providing CPG items. But there was a point that I probably could have bought a Birkin. I didn't, but I could have, like back in 2019, 2018, like when we were just fucking printing money, like it was the coolest thing ever. But like yourself, I didn't have a kid. I wasn't in a relationship. So I traveled a lot. I spent all my money traveling, like these beautiful destinations, beautiful like resorts, all of this. So when push came to shove, I was like, shit, I have no money. Like, like you put it all into your house. I put it all into building a beautiful wardrobe that I have and will have of timeless pieces, both shoes, bags, coats, everything. And traveling. But I should have really been putting it into retirement, and I give myself a lot of guilt about that.
And let the guilt go again. Let the guilt go. But again, I think when I look at it, a lot of them wouldn't fit me anymore anyway, because again, my body shut down and started to balloon. But like, I got rid of a lot of my ridiculously expensive shoes and bags and everything, and it took me a long time to let them go. But at the end of the day, I think I realized I was holding on to it because that was a part of who I was. And I had worked damn hard to put every single one of those pieces in my wardrobe. But there was something, and that's what I was talking about in terms of the healing process. There was something about, like, I had to let bits of those go, because that wasn't who I was anymore. And I didn't like who I was at the point that I was buying them all. At the point, the time that I was buying a lot of that stuff and earning my biggest internal salary ever was the point that I was turning into somebody that I didn't recognize in this toxic workplace. And I think, thinking that I could polish it all with a pair of Louboutins and, a Louis Vuitton. I had one day I was going to, this sounds very posh now, but I was going from our offices. I've been invited to like a round table discussion at the Houses of Parliament, like Westminster in London, with this group of MPs. And I'm sat on the tube going to the office one day and was just like, what is wrong with me? And this was kind of as I had gone back to work after my burnout and was in this kind of 3-month transition phase. and sat on the tube, and I'm looking at all these people that seemingly look really happy, and I was just like, I'm just so bloody miserable. And I don't know what it was that made me do it, but I was literally started like tallying up like how much I was wearing that day. And I'm sat there
that
with
makes
like,
me sick. When I used to do that on the subway,
like,
it made me sick. I was
yeah.
like, this is gross. Yeah.
Seriously, I am sat there wearing £10,000 worth of stuff, and I'm as miserable as hell. And again, that was another, and I remember going back to that moment as I stood looking at my wardrobe with all of these ridiculously expensive things, and just like, it's like I can let it all go, because I don't recognize who I was in any of that. I've replaced some of it, right? I've still got some very beautiful items that I've paid a lot of money for, but there's a different feeling that have gone into those those purchases that makes me feel very different about myself.
Sure. I mean, I sold a lot of things just because when I had the money, I did a lot of impulse purchases. So then I'd be like, I literally have never worn this. I don't even think it's cute now. Like,
so
so I have and I resell it like on Poshmark or one of those like Depop, but I think about my mom, and she had such a wonderful relationship with my dad, but she is literally wearing the same clothes that she had from when I was growing up, and she's totally okay with that. She's totally happy.
Same as my mom. Absolutely same as my mom.
Why aren't I like that? Like, I need to have a little bit more of that and like put my own spin on it.
My dad has still got jumpers that are older than I am. Again, I think, we were talking about different generations and different messages and what do all those things look like. I think our parents came from a different generation, right? You kind of made or may do. Yeah. And so some of that's, if it's still wearable, why wouldn't you? Whereas I think we've come, again, if we, I think we kind of similar ages from what we're saying in terms of we were talking about, but like we saw the introduction of CD players and laptops, right? Zoom, right? In order to record this conversation, right? We've seen all of that stuff, and everything has an end date, right? We constantly renewing stuff. We're constantly wanting bigger and better and faster and more expensive and more luxurious. Like that's a large part of what we've been brought up with. So why wouldn't you want to keep buying and buying and buying? Because again, not only the kind of way in which we were brought up, but what we were saying earlier in terms of like success, right? Success looks like a really big expensive handbag and a really big pair of designer heels, right? That's what we were told success looks like.
But going back to our conversation about like what was important to us, like shoes, bags, these expensive things. I don't know if it's an American thing or a big city thing, but to me, it was like, you can have it all. Or if it was like a growing up in the 80s thing where they were like, women with their power suits and holding the baby and like having a big executive job. Like, and I still feel like I deeply believe that if I work hard enough, I could have it all.
I still believe I can have it all, but I believe I can have it all without having to work all the hours and put myself in burnout to have it. So my whole motto is now I can have it all whilst working 4 days a week. Right, that's my thing.
So that's exactly where I was going. So it's like,
it's almost like, burnout, working long hours, all of those things. It's almost like scout badges that you are earning. And we
got all the badges. Yeah, been there, done that. Got the t-shirt.
Get the sash. And with all the
yeah.
Oh God, we should make little badges.
Yeah, don't be a dick, I think, is the only badge we need when it comes to toxicity and burnout.
I think here's the funny thing though. I think probably all of us at some person has been the toxic person in someone's story. So it's like we're all gonna get that I'm a dick badge, but then we're also gonna get the don't be a dick badge, right? Because like in the COO and the CEO's story, where we met, Nicola, I'm sure I was the toxic, horrible person, and you were my predecessor. Yeah, like I'm positive that I was.
I was great until I was apparently toxic. I was great. I was the favorite until I was toxic.
But I think they told that to a lot of people.
I think they did that too.
I think that was part of the toxicity, is that they told
to
everyone
create a toxic culture, right? So everybody's going against everybody.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm also curious to know, Kelly, what are some ways that you would recommend to leaders, organizations, etc., to help, I don't want to say prevent burnout, because it's an internal thing, right? You're going to burn out regardless of what your business puts in place. But I'm sure there are ways that businesses can do some things to help with burnout long term. What are some of those recommendations that you have up your sleeve?
Yeah, so I think recognizing that everybody is responsible for burnout prevention, right? Us as the individuals and the workplaces that we work in. So I'm absolutely convinced, if I know, like the deepest part of my core, I know if I had been in a different organization, I would not have reached burnout. If I had been in an organization that was not toxic, I would not have reached burnout. So I think as an individual, and as Gina was saying, right, Gina, you said you lasted like 4 months and then left.
Yeah.
So if I had paid attention to the intuitive part of me that said, get the hell out of there on day one, or even when it was still telling me that at 6 months, right? If I'd have listened to that part of me, I would not have got to the point of burnout. So I think absolutely listen as individuals. We need to listen to our intuition, because our intuition knows, get the hell out of there, right? So we cannot ignore that. Absolutely.
Tells you the non-tangible, but I think that's why our mind is so quick to say, hey, it's just like for you said, oh, it's just nerves. It's just first day jitters. Like I'm sure this is just like a clerical error. It'll be
absolutely. But whilst when it's still there 6 months later,
right? That's
pay attention to it, right? Pay attention from that perspective. So as individuals, trust your gut, trust your intuition, and act on it, because it will be giving you, even if you don't know the how or the why, pay attention to it. From an organization perspective, right, toxic workplaces are still the number one cause of burnout. And whilst toxic workplaces remain the number one cause of burnout, we're going to continue to see those numbers fly, right? And we're seeing statistics that are telling us that 77% of execs are reaching burnout, 98% of HR are reaching burnout, like 80 something percent, I think 84% of leaders worldwide are at the point of burnout. Like, this is awful. I think we're seeing the rise of it. We're definitely seeing the rise of it post-pandemic, because I think lots of organizations are still in panic, fight or flight mode. And organizations need to be creating, leaders in organizations need to be creating psychologically, mentally, physically, emotionally safe workplaces for their people. And that includes clear and open, honest communication. That includes being transparent. That includes ensuring that there are the right people with the right skills and the right knowledge, the right number of people to do the job, so that it isn't us high-performing overachievers that will just take on all the slack and keep on working and keep on working and keep on working. And leaders need to be really clear on who they are at the core, right? Leaders need to be living in a values-led, core-led way, instead of, like we were talking about with that Big Four consultancy, being led by fear, not being the people that want to speak up, being the people that will allow themselves to be blinded by science. Like, leaders have to be questioning this immoral, unethical stuff that's going on in their businesses, and they need to not be living it. So if we look at it from two prongs, as us as individuals, we need to know who we are, right? This is who I am at my core. These are my core values. I'm not departing from these at any cost. We need to understand, and listen to our intuition. And then leaders in organizations need to stop creating and perpetuating toxic workplaces. They need to be psychologically safe workplaces that allow people to be themselves, to not have to change to fit into that toxic environment, and that where there is safe enough to say, I'm struggling and I need some help. And so I think really, really pay attention to those signs and put yourself first. Like, your job, I know this kind of gets put everywhere and really does sound like a bit of a cliche, but your job will replace you tomorrow if you have to leave because you are at the point of burnout, right? They will just replace you. That, they will drop you if you resign. If they have to get rid of you, whatever, they are going to drop you. Your family, your friends, the people that you matter to cannot replace you, right? There is not another Kelly that's going to step in and be the mum to my sons, but there was another HR director that stepped into those shoes. And I think we've just got to
and then
recognize that we matter. Yeah. And yes. And then died.
And then literally dropped dead.
Died. So like, and this, like this, I mean, I don't bang on about this stuff because it's nice, like burnout and burnout prevention. Like, it's not a sexy subject. I'm not telling people how to become millionaires or how to live beautiful, happy lives. Like, I'm not like burnout prevention sounds like really dull and boring. Like, oh God, like, here we go again. Like, this stuff matters. It is literally killing people. It's making people really ill. It's causing huge issues. And we have to realize that as individuals, we are worth more than chronic stress that is literally crippling us.
Well, it has been such an amazing chat. I hope
Thank you for having me. Thank you, ladies. Have an amazing day.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank
it was so
you.
nice to meet you and chat.
Take care,
Have a
and
great
you
rest of
have an
your
all
day.
good one. Bye, bye, bye.
Thank you for joining us today. If you would like to share your story, we would love to hear from you.
Also, leaving a review helps us create more content because it shows us there's an interest in this topic.
For those of our listeners who do better with reading, we have closed caption available on YouTube.
See you next week, same time and same place.